Welcome to Civic Engagement Recognition Day. For those of you who don't know, my name is Samantha Siegel and I work in our Center for Leadership and Engagement. It is such a joy to be with you today, and I'm so happy that we had a little bit of sunshine to celebrate with us. Dr. Schafer?
Yep. So just to say, to follow up with Samantha, my name is Tim Schafer. I'm also in the Center for Leadership and Engagement, and we're really excited to have you all here today. It's wonderful after yesterday, but in so many ways, as a new member of this community, I think this is really at the heart of what we are as an institution, as we live out our mission as a college. And so really grateful to have you all be part of that. And also, just to say very briefly, because President Garassy will introduce her more extensively, but to have June Ellison here with us today and into tomorrow as we try to launch a new initiative in our center. So we're really grateful to have you here with us this afternoon. So thanks so much.
I want to, on the front end, thank a few people for being here. We have President Garassy and Mrs. Garassy, Dr. Kraus, our interim provost, a few other members of senior staff, some of our administrators. I also want to point out that we have many of our community partners here and so many families. So I want to give all of, and many of our professors that have taken time to stay with us. So I want to look around and thank everybody. You're all wonderful. You've all made it possible. I especially want to point out a few people in the Center for Leadership and Engagement. Thank you to Angie Ortano, who's our lovely administrative assistant, who has made this entire day possible. She's the best. Smile in the back, thank you, Anne. And also our wonderful student workers, Kevin, Leo, Alyssa, and Stacy. So thank you to them. So I was recently in Florida, and I had the privilege of visiting Rollins College, a beautiful liberal arts campus right outside of Orlando. And I was able to visit their college archives there, and I found out that Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, the greatest neighbor in all of history, graduated. And while I was there, I got to really think and reflect a lot about the lessons that Mr. Rogers taught me as a child. And I had no idea how much he influenced my civic development. And after I started to do some research, and I came across his acceptance speech at the Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony, the Emmys ceremony in 1997. And I'd like to share his opening line with you today. So he looked out on an audience of celebrities, politicians, change agents, mothers, fathers, sisters, friends, neighbors. And he said, "Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are, those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life? I'll watch the time." Today we celebrate the civic accomplishments of so many of you in this room. Students, community partners, professors, so many whole departments. And I want everybody to take a minute to think about all of the people that go into creating that experience for all of us, that go into creating this community. Think about those who feed our minds first and foremost, our professors. Those who make this whole place possible, our administrators and senior staff who keep us moving. Those who keep our history and are entrusted with our resources, our board members, who nourish our bodies from Lackman, who stage this beautiful room that give us the opportunity to celebrate together, different administrative departments. Our community partners who enrich our students' experience every day. And so many more. Our parents who've made every step possible for you to be here, students. Without them, how would we? Our guardians, mentors, and coaches. And our friends who are often the ones who help us stay here when it gets hard. I could say more and talk about all of the pieces that build a community. A community is always shifting and growing as we learn from each other. And ultimately, we're all neighbors. And like Mr. Roger, I believe that we want what's best for each other in this life. And so, I ask you, in the spirit of community, would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think about the people who have helped you become who you are. Those who have cared about you and wanted what's best for you in this life. I'll watch the time. So Mr. Rogers also said, "As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have. something inside that is unique to all of time, and it's our job to encourage each other to discover that uniqueness and to provide ways of developing its expression. I have the privilege of working with so many of you every day and enjoy those unique parts of who you are. There is perhaps, by the way, no better neighbor than President Richard Garassy. Richard has cared about this community for over 10 years, first as the provost and now as president. During his tenure at Wagner, he spearheaded the development of the Wagner Plan for the Practical Liberal Arts and encourages all of us to deepen our experiential learning work and sustain our community engagement work. He works nationally and on multiple groups and was recently named the chair of National Campus Compact. We appreciate all that you do for our Wagner community. What a great neighbor you are to all of us. It's my pleasure to introduce the distinguished President, Richard Garassy.
Thank you, Samantha, for those wonderful remarks. Welcome, everybody, for being here. This is a remarkable day where we get to see outstanding role models and outstanding leaders. And I just wanted to say a few words about where we are at this moment before I get a chance to introduce June Ellison. So we do this work at Wagner because we believe that to be a well-educated person, one has to be able to envision and build towards an interracial, democratic society. And that's an aspiration we've had for a long time in this country, and it goes through fits and starts. We're living at a time when, in fact, neighborhoods which are suffering from significant inequalities amidst a lot of prosperity around them are losing allies rapidly. As federal budgets and state budgets and city budgets get constricted, we find that neighborhoods that are severely distressed, where the aspirations of so many young people and their parents and families cannot be met easily, where there are many obstacles in their way. At the same time, we find that higher education sits with tremendous assets, but most of all, the assets of our students and our teachers and faculty members who deeply believe that they're preparing students to become leaders in that envisioned interracial democratic society. Dr. King gave us a vision, a larger vision, which is sort of lost at times, of what it means to live in that kind of a world. You know, when he said at the March on Washington that he envisioned a time when his little girl, would be judged not on the color of her skin, but the content of her character. When he envisioned a world where all of us would be lifted to a much higher plane of living in a truly good society, where economic and interracial justice was the norm, not the exception. He gave us a path, a vision of something to aspire to. And at times we get lost in all the different paths and roads and branches to get there and all the obstacles that some put in our way towards that ideal. But the work of civic engagement is an attempt to link the students in higher education in our colleges and universities deeply, deeply with the neighbors, to use Samantha's metaphor, with our neighbors in these distressed communities, to form a bond together where our students learn with them and from them in terms of trying to solve problems together and obstacles in the way of progress and advancement and in leadership development. And in so many ways, our students learn from the community as well as the community gains from the kind of work that we can do with them. So this larger notion of civic engagement in higher education is based on this aspiration of building that good society, and it's about preparing our students to be something we call here, and take quite seriously, civic professionals, a term by which we mean that these students, whatever their career path may be it in the helping professions of teaching or nursing or healthcare or education, or in more secular things like business development, each one of those professions, and many things in between, scientists and artists and the like, performers, each one have various neighborhoods and communities and what we call publics that are counting on them to do their job at the best possible level they can with the highest integrity, but also mindful of the needs of these folks who are depending on them to be their allies and to move those communities forward through stimulating ideas and good practice where we actually gather people together to achieve uncommon success. So that's the role of civic engagement in higher education, and we expect our students when they graduate from Wagner are closer to understanding the role they'll play, using knowledge for social purpose in a profound way. Today we get a chance to meet one of the professionals in our field who she herself has embodied so much of this work in her life and her career, and now in her new projects around Citizen Alums. Julie Ellison has been a distinguished professor of record studies and literature at the University of Michigan for a number of years and is a very distinguished scholar, having received her own undergraduate degree from Harvard and her PhD from Yale. But she's gone on really to take this work quite seriously and embed it into work of everyday citizens and all the communities that we've been discussing. She's worked in South Africa with artists and listening to their needs and their desires in terms of pushing this work forward, to local communities in and around Michigan, and now nationally with many of us through first Imagining America, which is a group that links the arts and humanities to the civic engagement work, and now with alumni of various institutions, linking now our alumni of all of our institutions back to their institutions around civic engagement, around providing useful ways to move learning and also move impact on neighborhoods. I can't think of a better colleague that I have nationally than Julie Ellison. It's my privilege to introduce you to today. Julie Ellison.
So thank you, Richard. I'm just going to start my timer here, lest I get carried away. Can you see?
You know, I can lower these for you.
Okay,
Hang on,
okay,
I'm going to
great.
do that. Watch the president do this.
I'm really impressed. Like the all-round president. So thank you for that great introduction, Richard. And I also particularly want to thank Tim Schafer for the invitation to speak and for rising to every possible pressure that the visit involved, including yesterday my flight was rained out. So I'm especially glad to be here since for a minute there it looked like I wouldn't be. And thanks to everyone who, and I know it's a village that helped make this visit and this occasion possible. And thank you also to my husband Mark for coming with me. It's so unusual that we get to go on one of these gigs together. So, given the fact that he's a very civically engaged guy, it seems I know there are a lot of families here. It's nice to have some of my family here as well. So my title is Democratic Time. And I'm going to talk about 4 moments in democratic time. First, I want to say something about my images. You'll see from a lot of the images that I use that my work centers on the humanities and the arts, on the cultural arena and cultural organizations. So I can walk down the hallway of my English department at the University of Michigan and pass the doorways of faculty who now are using ethnography, exhibition, performance, advocacy around issues like disability, documentary practices, which I would not have seen 10 years ago. So through the images, I'm going to be making a kind of implied case for how important it is to suffuse narrative, story, lyric, the archive into what I call democratic time. So this image, as some of you may know, is from a band that is obsessed with time, the Rentals. For 1 year, they had 3 projects going on, each occupying a different unit of time. They did photographs about days. They shot 1 roll of 35mm film per day, generating 38 photos per day. You can do the math. They had films about weeks, so they had 1 video per week. And they had songs about time. And then they produced 4 songs every 3 months. So I use this image, songs about time, because this talk today is a kind of song about time, although I must say I don't think the Rentals are very interested in democracy, kind of languid. So maybe we won't push this too far with the Rentals. So in order to, can you read? Okay, good, because you see it from a different angle than I'm seeing it from. So in order to talk about civic engagement in real time, I thought it would be useful to begin with a common language, or a common terminology, at least for one afternoon, to remind ourselves of the multiple moments of civic engagement, no one of which can stand apart from the other moments. So you've seen, I've highlighted some words, especially the verbs. Active citizens build, sustain, reform, and improve the communities to which they belong. They deliberate with peers to define public problems and then collaborate to address those problems. They honor certain virtues, such as equal respect for others and loyalty to their communities that does not preclude critical thinking and dissent. Actual work is just as important as deliberation, I would say more important than deliberation, that's why it's in orange. We learn from acting together. Citizens construct or build public goods. In doing so, they create civic relationships, which are scarce but renewable assets. This is from a blog post by Peter Levine, and it's a great post because he assembles probably 15 definitions of civic engagement, radically different from one another, from people with wildly different points of view, and then offers his own. My 4 moments of democratic time are these. First, the moment of the ceremony, this ceremony, holistic celebration. This is the kind of time that both recognizes public engagement and is itself a public act. Second, the moment of memory. I use Houston Baker's phrase, critical memory. Third, the moment of becoming an interruption, which has to do with cultural acts. And fourth, the moment of graduating, which for some of you is probably imminent. When is your graduation? Okay. But who's counting, right? So this image, I'll tell you a little bit about each picture. This image is from my office, and you can see that a kind of tin figure of the owl, signifying the goddess of wisdom, an artifact from my late mother-in-law, Janie Creekmore, who was a Latin teacher a killer Latin teacher in Oklahoma City. So she kept this on her bookshelf to make her think about wisdom. And in the back is a poster for YOHA, that was Year of Humanities and Arts, which was a project that I led as Associate Vice President for Research in the later 90s, which is what got me into all the trouble I've been in ever since around civic engagement in higher education. So we had YOHA yo-yos, and we had a lot of fun. So that's a kind of my intergenerational image of 2 moments in my own democratic time. So our moment here, our moment of holistic celebration. This lively image is from a backyard art project in a man's house in Detroit. Now, democratic occasions are really important. Democratic occasions are about the visibility of democracy and its sociability as well. We see, today we recognize in these awards, we see democracy and we see it together. And we have democratic feelings, and in having those feelings about the awardees, about our own work, if you're someone whose work is being recognized, those of us who, among the faculty, with whom, of course, I strongly identify, who have nurtured this work, we share these democratic feelings in a public space, and we are moved by our own democratic agency. So ceremonies of recognition are important because of this kind of publicness. So when I read through the program, I see the whole system of civic engagement. Civic engagement, community development, and socially responsive education. The whole system is in this room today. Community partners, faculty, students, students, staff, alumni, centers, And departments where the field meets the curriculum, where students meet the faculty, and where the department as a living organization, one hopes a living organization, meets other living organizations. So this is the ecosystem of civic engagement. So through these festivals and ceremonies, we speak publicly about our public work, and that is publicness to the second power. And that is why days like today matter so much. So this is a public occasion in my own hometown. You can see the woman is here with pieces of a puppet that will soon be paraded through the Ann Arbor streets. And this is a puppet with wearing a poster that says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." The Festivals happens each year in a campus studio in one of our living learning communities. The studio is open to anyone in the city, on the campus, in the region, who wants to make a puppet. And there's a nighttime event where people make illuminated puppets, and then a daytime event on a Sunday afternoon. So people work for months to make their puppets, and many of them highly political, some of them more fanciful without a particular message, all arising from the tradition of Italian political puppetry. So I use this image and the words it contains to remind us of some of the key definitions of the word public. Like all English professors, I dote on the Oxford English Dictionary and its wonderful definitions. I won't read them all to you because there's about 30 of them. But 3 or 4 of the definitions of public seem germane to this moment. Open to general observation, view, or knowledge. Existing, performed, or carried out without concealment so that all may see and hear. Open or available to all members of a community, not restricted to the private use of a particular person or a group. Aimed at or devoted to the promotion of the general welfare. So the moment of civic celebration is one of the most powerful manifestations of the link between public time, which is not always democratic, public time, and democratic time. So I want to continue to think with you about democracy in the 4th dimension, which of course is time. And here I have a picture of one of my favorite teaching devices, which I use to illustrate practically everything in my classes, which is the hourglass. Here I use the hourglass as a metaphor for the civic project as a process with a shape, like the projects that are represented in the wonderful posters that I saw earlier this afternoon, created by students about the work they've done, and like the projects done by all of the organizations and programs represented in the room. So a process with a shape, and you will see right here that I captured with my little phone one of the images from one of the posters. In fact, one of the awardees, Generation Citizen, actually also uses the advocacy hourglass as an image, a backbone for our action projects. Turned, so my own hourglass, one of the things I like about it is that you can flip it and it starts over like any hourglass. This is a nautical one, so you could flip it and hang it up on its shipboard hook if you want to. So mine lasts for 42 minutes. So I know all of the projects here today lasted much longer and involved a lot more work. But you can see how nicely the hourglass represents big ideas squeezed through the tiny waste of possibility of what can actually happen on any given day in any given place, and then opens back out into the fullness of meaning and the future of that work as it expands in time and space. Turned on its side, the hourglass becomes a figure 8, which I think of as the loop of civic engagement. So Carol Schneider, who's another great leader in this country that many of us work with, she's the president of the Association of American Colleges and Universities, known for connecting civic engagement with diversity and equity. She writes about the figure eight as follows. Picture a figure eight, a flattened figure eight turned on its side. The left side loop represents a scholarly community of practice, the academic field with its own questions, debates, validation procedures, communication practices, and so on. The right side loop represents scholarly work in the public with community partners in collaborative problem-solving groups through projects that connect knowledge with choices and action. And so everybody in this room who's involved in the projects that are being recognized is somewhere in this loop, and I think that crisscross place in the middle is really where most of the people in this room spend their time. So I'm going to skip a few slides here fairly quickly in order to save time. I have something to say here through the work of George Eudices about cycles of learning, that agency is never wholly one's own. What I like about this is the part at the end. It says, it refers to organizations, changes in how organizations understand knowledge and how they desire democracy. So if we think about how organizations, nonprofit organizations, K through 12 schools, arts groups, and colleges actively desire democracy, that underscores how important the organizational, social group part of engagement is, that we have democratic agency as individuals, but also as in our organizational roles and lives. The second moment of democratic time is critical memory. And you can see here that I take from The Onion, the U.S. Department of Retro warns we may be running out of the past. Of course, a completely illogical statement, since we're making past and remaking past, at a great rate. So this comes from work by Houston Baker, this term critical memory, on critical memory and the black public sphere, where he focuses on Martin Luther King's representation of himself and call for leaders who are drum majors for justice. And Houston Baker talks about what is a drum major for justice. And a drum major for justice is not nostalgic about the past. It does not read the past as past. We're not done with the past, and we can't feel complacent about it. It was fine that we had the I Have a Dream speech and the March on Washington, but we cannot rest on that, and we learn that every day, and this week, again, we learned that. So the drum major for justice I like as someone in the humanities, because Houston Baker talks about how voice, performance, rhetoric in public, how language in public, including the act of writing a document like a letter from Birmingham jail, represents the imagination as a social practice. And this notion that imagination is not just this fanciful thing in our heads, but it is something that we do together. We imagine things and then we practice them. It seems to me to be an important part of how we think about the past. I have something to say there about time and hope. And here I introduce the third moment, culture as becoming and interrupting. And here is where I will pause again. How many people recognize this picture? Yeah, I was going to, so you're raising your hands. Were you there? Mm-hmm. You're part of this project? Yes. That's great. And so this, of course, is the residency of Kevin Bott from Imagining America, an organization, of course, very close to my heart, in Port Richmond with Wagner participants and partners. And for those of you who weren't there, I'll just say that this involved a collaboration of Port Richmond residents, including members of Eye-Opening Youth Against Violence, a group of Wagner College students, and Kevin Bott, who comes out of community participatory theater for social change and is just happens to be associate director of Imagining America up in Syracuse. So he conducted a series of workshops that focused on identifying and reducing racial tensions in Port Richmond. So I will just read from the newspaper article. The project culminated with a theatrical presentation to an enthusiastic friendship dinner audience of more than 100 people at St. Philip's Baptist Church, in which spectators interrupted the action on stage to bring about more racially harmonious outcomes by becoming part of the performance. They offered alternative approaches to uncomfortable yet very real situations. The interaction between the actors and the audience helped to make the performance not only interactive, but transformative. So to me, the most important three words are the spectators interrupted, and the notion that that civic engagement is a performance that requires interruption, and the value of that interruption in changing the storyline in our communities seems to me to be one of the places where the work of the arts and humanities in actually creating different kinds of time in which interruption is possible. Because think of all the times in our lives when interruption is not possible, or feels like it's not possible. So this seems to me the best example of that. So, so now I am on to my fourth moment of democratic time, which is graduate. Wait a minute. Oh no, it's going to this automatic thing. Stop. Don't do that. Stay.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. I feel like, the dog whisperer, Okay. Richard Garassy mentioned that I'm now working with a number of campuses around the country, about 30 of them. Wagner is going to be a shining light in this initiative on this program called Citizen Alum. And the tagline of Citizen Alum is doers, not just donors. I'm in meetings, yesterday, today, and tomorrow about this. I will not give you the entire story of Citizen Alum here. Citizenalum.org is the website. But I will say that this moment of graduating is a salient event, not only in the lives of people who do it and their families, but for our society. So the question is, how do we change the discourse around college? So how do we change the discourse from this? So what is this? You'd probably like to know what you're looking at. On the left, there is a graduation card from a bookstore across from Columbia University, and I bought these cards and many others like them with the same message right before graduation season in 2012. So one says, "Happy graduation, now what?" And the next one says, "You now owe your parents $114,281.56 plus books. Congratulations, grad." And the other cards are equally bitter. They represent this voice of the onset of alumnihood, right? Oh, congratulations, graduate! Now you're an alum. Debt, joblessness, resentful parents, highly anxious graduates hungry like you are for work that pays and matters. So, so how do we change the discourse from this? Stop. I think it requires a very light touch. Mapping our way, and I'm a big fan of mapping work, time, location, relationships, key concepts through visual thinking. This is a South African arts organization which has produced a very complicated, multi-dimensional map of its own history. Mapping our way through educational experiment of the kind that you have here to this. Back. This is the cake from the Community Action and Social Change minor at my own university. Congratulations, graduates. This cake was served at a reception for the second graduating cohort, and the people serving the cake were the first graduating cohort who had come back every year. Those graduating cohorts come back one by one. They Skype in or they visit week by week to the senior capstone course to be allies in education as that graduating group moves towards that transition. So that is an emblem of civically engaged alumni, and the passage from citizen student to citizen alum. And I do want to say here that when I talk about citizenship, I'm not talking about documentary citizenship, which is denied or withheld through the courts and through legislation. I'm talking about aspirational citizenship and the larger vision of democratic agency that implies. I have one final example of, other than the cake itself and the other day of celebration that happens each year. In fact, it's happening this weekend at my home campus around the Community Action and Social Change. And this is a text. This is the transcript of what Noel Johnson said at a conference panel at the Imagining America conference, a panel of GAP alums, that is, of recent grads who are in that 5 years after graduation where they're making themselves up, traveling, trying new things, and pursuing the civic work they started as undergraduates. Noel Johnson graduated from Western Kentucky University, where she participated in the Public Achievement Program. Public Achievement is not unlike Generation Citizen. So it is a hands-on program that brings citizen politics to life through teams of kids and teenagers, mostly in K through 12 schools, working with democracy coaches from community organizations and from colleges. A lot of the democracy coaches are, as Noel was, college students. These young people define a public problem and that is relevant to their school or their community, and then they work democratically to design and implement strategies to address that issue, learning the skills and concepts of democratic public life in the process. So as an undergraduate at Western Kentucky, Noel had hosted the first national meeting of people who were serving as democracy coaches at public achievement programs around the country. Now she's a graduate student. She's just started at Northern Arizona State in their program in sustainable communities, and they're doing public achievement there. And she's still working on creating a citizen alum network of people who were democracy coaches in college and now have graduated but want to stay connected. So life after being a democracy coach. So this is what she said in the moment of the session. And so I put in blue the words that actually have to do with time. So she's talking, as I'm talking to you, only without a script really. She says, one thing I want to point out, and I was talking to Harry about this earlier, that's Harry Boyd, who some of you may know his work on everyday politics and other things. Talking to Harry about this earlier, in fact, I had run into her at 7 o'clock in the morning looking for Harry in the hotel to have breakfast. What's the purpose of higher education? We're in our own little bubble, we in public achievement. We don't think about higher education. Public achievement has always been an outward thing, out in the community. But we're also changing the culture of higher education. Actually, this is something I'm just realizing today. It's a slow process while I'm transitioning into grad school. If we can bring them together, public achievement and higher education, what's that going to mean? It hasn't happened yet, but of course it could. So this, to me, is the quintessence of the the civically engaged alumni, and you can see it's a process, and it involves a lot of thinking aloud as well as a lot of action. So my final slide says congratulations. Congratulations to all of the awardees. I close as I began by underscoring the importance of public occasions of recognition. This image comes from Bicentennial Park in Milford, New Hampshire, that honors Harriet Wilson. A group of mostly retired black women said no one's ever going to forget that Harriet Wilson lived in this town. Again, Harriet Wilson was proved as to be the author of the first novel published by a black woman in the United States 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, probably 25 years ago now, and the town had never recognized her, and these women rose up and organized and said never again. So they got the park, they designed the Bicentennial Park to be the site for this sculpture of Harriet Wilson holding her book, open to a page in which you can read the scene in which she resists her mistress, and stepping forward. So, of course, there are many ceremonies of dedication and celebration when this was installed, but to me, especially this step right there represents the condition of life that is captured in the title of a book that comes out of a dialogue between Paulo Freire, the famous educator who brought us critical pedagogy, and Miles Horton, who brought us the Highlander Center. And the title of that book is We Make the Road by Walking. So you are making the road by walking, and today is a big step, and may you take many more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. I love that idea of imagination as social practice. That's one that I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about with our students and in our office, because I think we are always reimagining our work and what we can do, as well as our community, both here on campus and off campus. So it's very appropriate for our first award, and I'd like to ask Dr. Garassy to join me up here to hand off the awards as well.
Great. I'm just writing down
Okay. So the Impact Scholar Civic Network is designed for students who have a passion for others, as well as embodies this work through the community service. They have a desire to continue and advance their commitment to civic engagement. Impact stands for inspiring mutuality, participation, and civic transformation. Vera Michal is a junior here at Wagner, double majoring in Spanish and history. She's skilled in helping others and has done so much work, both in the community outside of Wagner and here at Wagner. She's worked at El Centro del Migrante as a tutor, as well as serves as an active member of our community as a peer tutor and peer leader. She's the president of the Muslim Student Association and is always at every social justice dialogue. We really appreciate you and congratulate you.
Thank you, guys.
Our Bonner of the Year. So this year is our first year as a Bonner School, which is a national program. Over 70 schools participate around the country in an intense civic engagement program that selects a number of student participants to volunteer over 300 hours in the community. Our Bonner of the Year is chosen through a democratic process by the other Bonners participating in the program. And this year, we are excited to recognize Jasmine Diaz. Jasmine Diaz is a first-year student coming to us from Oregon, majoring in Spanish. She's blogged over 300 hours of civic work both on and off campus, and for the past year has worked with Project Hospitality. Thank you for being with us, Project Hospitality, to celebrate. She's also worked with Generation Citizens and on Hurricane Sandy relief. She's a model of honor. Thanks for being with us. So each year, we recognize a student or two and give out the Julie Barkita Award for Civic Engagement. That's usually given out. It is given out at the Senior Awards Dinner, but because Julie helped chart the path of civic engagement and the Wagner Plan, we wanted to make sure that this award was also given here today. Kelly Griffith and Molly Delbridge are two founding Port Richmond scholars. Kelly is dual majoring in Spanish and education, and during her 4 years here at Wagner, she's been an active leader, serving as a student government senator, resident assistant, and founding Port Richmond scholar. Kelly has closely studied dual language education and deepened and expanded our work in the community at PS 19 and other Port Richmond schools. She's taught abroad in different countries around South America, recently teaching in Costa Rica. In the fall, we're very proud of this, Kelly will be continuing her teaching abroad as a Fulbright English teaching assistant in Ecuador. Congratulations. Is a graduating senior with her degree in anthropology and Spanish. During her time here at Wagner, she's also served as a resident assistant and Port Richmond Scholar of Health and Well-Being. For the past year, Molly's worked as an intern at the Partnership for Drug-Free America, as well as sought to connect her work with the Partnership for Drug-Free America on campus and in the greater Staten Island community. Molly is also fluent in Spanish and has worked for many years at El Centro del Migrante. And in the fall, Molly will be joining the Peace Corps, further demonstrating her commitment to global engagement. We believe that Kelly and Molly fully embody the Seahawk spirit of civic engagement and leadership as charted by Julie Barkita. And we can't think of two students that Julie would be more proud of. So thank you, Molly.
I'm not still in romance.
Okay, this is more than I can deal with.
Go seniors!
So I have the honor to introduce the next two awards, and the first is the Project Pericles Student Award, which is going to Kevin Farrell. Kevin is a graduating senior majoring in political science with a focus on college and community partnerships and a passion for civic engagement. He's a Division I athlete and a former football player, and after a career-ending injury, Kevin found a new team and committed himself to social justice and advocacy work. During his time here at Wagner, he has served as a democracy coach for Generation Citizen, a club leader, and a senior Bonner intern in the Center for Leadership and Engagement. Kevin is a gifted organizer and has helped take Wagner civic work both locally and nationally to the next level. He exudes so much of what we believe here at Wagner in the Seahawk spirit of civic engagement and community leadership. Congratulations. And actually related to a lot of Kevin's work, our Community Partner Award this year goes to Generation Citizen. So Generation Citizen has been here working with Wagner College for the past 4 years through ongoing collaborations with professors in their courses and most often with a student-run chapter here on campus of Generation Citizen. Over the past few years, it has grown significantly both nationally and here at Wagner College. And their mission, the mission of the organization is to, quote, strengthen our nation's democracy by empowering young people to become engaged and effective citizens, end quote. They seek to foster a culture in which every citizen participates in the political process. The organization teaches teenagers direct political action through an innovative in-class curriculum. The goal of Generation Citizen is to revolutionize civic education in this country by building a new generation of youth activists and leaders, inspired and equipped to make change. Generation Citizen has been an important academic and community partner here at Wagner College, truly modeling the best of partnership work in both a curricular and co-curricular way. Congratulations.
We should mention, I'm noticing that in the back of these wonderful awards is an envelope. And I assume there's some monetary compensation in this envelope.
Yeah, don't
throw them away. Catch those.
That would be a poor decision on this. And next, Dr. Stephen Preskill is going to present the next few awards.
So I have the very distinct honor of leading us in recognizing Coach Malik Hall. Coach Hall is Wagner College's defense coordinator on the field and in the locker room. He's a champion, acting as one of the masterminds behind the success and glory that Wagner's team has enjoyed over the past few years. But his prowess on the field and off the field is legendary. His players admire and respect him for his fierce commitment, his clear expectations, his balanced attitude. He's taught them that your character is not measured by the championship ring on your finger or the number of W's on the board, but by the content of your character and the depth of your commitment, all of which grows out of his twin mantra of the two things within our control. Right, Coach? Yep. Effort and attitude. For the past 2 years, Coach Hall has partnered with the Center for Leadership and Engagement to develop a program called MOVE. Anthony, do it with me. Motivate, overcome, visualize, empower. MOVE places college athletes in community-based internships during off-season months in order to ensure that they have experiential learning experience that's the cornerstone of the Wagner plan. He assists with the reflective seminar, which is the genius of this program, by the way. The MOVE participants do these amazing community internships, but then every week they come and for 2 or 3 hours reflect on, talk about what does it mean, what are they learning, which has been such a huge part, I think, of its success. About 20 student athletes have successfully participated in this pilot program, now contributing to the development of it as we speak. Additionally, Coach Hall volunteers as the Wagner College Athletics representative to speak at the Port Richmond High School Visit Days, a series of campus visits from our first-year high school students. He speaks to the students about the importance of college and athletics as one possible pathway and the necessary dispositions to be successful in college. And when Coach Hall is here, there are about 60 Port Richmond High School students in this room, about 30 on each side, and he divides up the room and he says, you're going to be effort and you're going to be attitude. And then he has them at the top of their lungs shout effort and attitude, and it creates this amazing uproar. But it's a beautiful, productive, valuable uproar because it gets these Port Richmond students thinking about the things that really matter. And we can't imagine a better representative of the Staff of the Year award, the kind of example that he sets and the ways in which he is an exemplar for all of us.
Who writes this stuff, but it's pretty good, right?
Anthony wrote it. Anthony Carrington's here. He's one of the moves. Who else is here for Move? Anybody else in the room? Kevin?
Have them stand
Anthony? Okay. And I do know that all of you at this moment are trembling because Anthony scored 3 touchdowns in the green and white game, and he's told me that he wants my office. He's moving me out, is what he's doing.
I'd like to ask Pat Zucker, Dean for Integrated Learning, to join us.
Following my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen Pericles, is never an easy act, especially since I really didn't prepare as much knowing these next two awardees as well as I do. So I can only hope that I can bring as much enthusiasm. You see, the next awardees are the faculty, and it's usually for one person. Although so much has been done over the past few years, particularly the last year, that we determined that we would award Dr. Nancy Schafer and Professor Jane DeFazio with the Faculty Award. Typical of both Nancy and Jane, their immediate responses were something like this. Jane emailed me and said, "Is this a mistake? I'm being honored." I said, "Because of the work you do." She said, "But this is what I do." I said, "I know, and we're honoring you for it." Nancy Schafer told Dr. Trapello, I'm not taking this award. This award should go to the students." And we had to say, "No, this award is going to you because without you, the students would not do the work that they do." You see, this type of work is really not new. Nursing, throughout the history of nursing, from the origins of Florence Nightingale to a more recent origin, not all that recent, Lillian Wald, who is the founder of community health nursing. I want to tell you just a little bit about Lillian Wald because I know I cannot tell you that much more about Dr. Schafer or Professor Jane DeFazio without them both giving me hell right after the ceremony. That is how selfless their service is. If you want to read their bios, they're beautifully descripted on our Wagner homepage for nursing, and I know if I spoke more about them, they would be angry. But I can tell you that as members of our Reverend L. Sphero School of Nursing, their contributions are endless. Their knowledge, their love, their empathy, their innovation, their energy, the list goes on and on and on. Dr. Schafer joined us just a few years ago and has just single-handedly revamped our community health section of the curriculum, She actually finished her DNP with her expertise working with the Visiting Nurse Service in New York City. Jane DeFazio has been a part of our faculty for many years as an adjunct and now as a full-time faculty member and the director of our undergraduate curriculum, and all but dissertation from Seton Hall. And her background and her expertise, although they both combine, and if I do the math, they'll be really angry at me, many, many, many years of nursing practice in very well-known institutions here on Staten Island. But Jane has been with us for a number of years and is very close to finishing her doctorate degree in learning communities and learning styles. I just want to go back very briefly and I'll stop. I want to tell you a little bit about Lillian Wald. Lillian Wald is known in our research and throughout our books as the founder of community health nursing, right behind Florence Nightingale. You see, she, like Jane and Nancy, was just a nurse. Just a nurse. Born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio in the late 1800s. Came to New York City and actually went to school at the New York Hospital Training School for Nurses in 1891. Upon finishing, she was living on the Lower East Side and was horrified at the living conditions. She gathered some of her friends together, just as Nancy and Jane do, only they gathered the students as well, and she started going from house to house to house, to stores, to street corners, taking care of individuals, doing what Florence Nightingale told us a long time ago, just taking care of individuals with the basic needs that need to be met. After graduating from this particular school and working in the city, she started the VNS service in 1893. 2 years later, she started the Henry Street Settlement, which, believe it or not, is still on Henry Street, the exact same building with some of its very same furniture in a large room where she would gather some of the wealthiest philanthropists in New York City and speak to them about helping and service and providing. We take our community health nursing students to the Henry Street Settlement just so that they can see what it was like. In closing, I just want to tell you some of the things that either people say about her as I feel is what I would like to say about my two dearest friends here and colleagues, and what she has said herself. Ever since I have been conscious of my part in life, I have felt consecrated to the saving of a human being. A colleague said she was a practical idealist. Her goal was to create a more just society where women and children, immigrants and the poor, all ethnicities and religious groups would realize America's promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Lastly, she said, and I know both Nancy and Jane have overcome so many different obstacles to do the work that they do, not only here on Wagner's campus, our community, but the surrounding community as lifelong Staten Islanders. Over broken asphalt, over dirty mattresses, and heaps of refuse, we went. There were 2 rooms and a family of 7, not only lived here, but shared their quarters with boarders. I felt ashamed of being a part of a society that permitted such conditions to exist. What I had seen had shown me where my path lay. Ladies and gentlemen, I offer you 2 wonderful colleagues who are so deserving of being the faculty awardees in civic engagement, service, and so much more. Nancy Charovsky.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nancy Charovsky, and this is my colleague, Professor Jane DeFazio. We really would just like to acknowledge the students that really help, really do the work that maybe that we see in the community that needs to be done, but these students are the ones that really are why we're receiving this award. And I'd just like them to stand, if they don't mind, is Maria Seville, and then there's Wilson Thomas, and then there's Marcel K.
Beautifully done. Here, sitting here reflecting. Pat, I'd like to bring Pat back up to give our next award to education. Sitting here thinking about how lovely things are.
Okay, so fairly typical of my role, I am pleased now to recognize the department that are receiving the award for their service and civic engagement and all of what they do and have done and continue to do, the Department of Education. Who else did I see?
Reverend Katya.
And Katya.
But this is, I actually am not faced with the situation that Jane and Nancy were. This is for the department so the students can come.
So let me tell you a little bit about the Education Department that you perhaps know or may not know. The Education Department at Wagner has a long history of making civic engagement a priority. While it is true that community-engaged learning is a natural for any ed program, there are a few teacher preparations as committed to this work as Wagner's. For instance, going back many years, the Education Department was one of the 6 departments that chose to participate in the Civic Innovations Program, which encouraged departments to work closely in a sustained manner with a community partner. Additionally, civic engagement has long been a part of the department's mission, as inscribed in the 5 C's: competent, committed, curious, caring, and community active professionals. In fact, professors and students alike regard the ability to carry out place-based, community-engaged action as the culmination of a Wagner education. Additionally, the Education Department has been a highly active contributor to a concerted effort to deepen relationships with many of the organizations and agencies that have given the partnership its staying power. This past academic year, the Ed Department has taken its historic community involvement to a new level, which is the reason for this recognition. David Gordon, for instance, has taken the lead in creating a strong partnership with Lifestyles for the Disabled that I believe Kevin Joyce is still here. I'm not sure if he is. Anybody here from Lifestyles? I think he may have had to leave a little bit early. In which Wagner students team with Lifestyles participants in creating multimedia projects that address real-world issues that matter. Dr. Jason Fitzgerald has worked closely with both Port Richmond High School and New World Prep to expand partnerships and to support Wagner students in recognizing that their learning is often enriched and deepened through relationships with people in the larger community. I think Jamie is here from New World. Did I see Jamie? Hi, Jamie.
Yes.
He and Professor Gordon are also doing cutting-edge research on the intellectual and social qualities possessed by community activists, which allows them to be highly effective change agents. Katia Gonzalez, Rhoda Frumpkin, and Dr. Karen DeMoss have all collaborated closely with Project Hospitality, Make the Road New York, El Sentido, PS20, and other organizations and schools to enrich early childhood education in Port Richmond and to help the Mexican-American parents feel more empowered and better able to support their children's education. In closing, in all of this work, Wagner students are using what they are learning in the classroom to address challenging social and economic issues and to work more collaboratively and reciprocally with community members from diverse backgrounds. They are living the idea that our local neighborhoods can be the site of the most meaningful learning experiences, and that people with limited English proficiency and a minimum of formal education can, in fact, become some of our most powerful leaders. With this award, we recognize the ongoing effects of the Ed Department to make learning stick and to use it to make all of our lives a little bit of a better place. Congratulations.
There you go. You know the drill. Aaron, you can do that.
Okay, we did it. We got it.
All right, we do this? Oh, I look so much taller. I love this.
And one more. All right. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So I'd like to ask our Director of Alumni Relations, Ken Lamb, to join us. So our next award is actually a surprise. It's going to one of our distinguished young alumni, Emily Burkhart. So Emily, this is not new for Emily. Emily graduated from Wagner in 2011 and created her own major here. And Emily, upon graduation, was an AmeriCorps volunteer, moved on to an amazing career with New York Cares, and is now going on to Teach for America. We are so proud of Emily because this year she's worked so closely with us to guide, develop, and coach in unbelievable ways our Bonner leaders. She is truly a Citizen Alum and the best example a Wagner graduate can be, and I'm so honored to call you my friend too, so thank you.
I just want to say thank you. This continues to be an honor. I'm from Colorado originally, and my mom cries every time she thinks of Wagner because it was really important to her that I had a home. And Wagner was truly my home. I was an RA. I'm going to tear up. I'm leaving, and it's really hard how much I love this community, how much all of you do every day. It's inspiring, and I'm so excited to take that with me into a classroom as a teacher, to continue my journey with new neighbors and old neighbors, and thank God for Facebook and technology and Skype and not writing crazy letters across the country. But you guys are all doing really amazing things, and thank you very much. Thank you.
So you may recall the Bonner program that started this year. This is the end of the first year. We want to honor the first group of participants from this Bonner cohort. So we're going to do this in a very simple way. When I call your name, will you just stand and you can applaud for each one. I think that's fine. It's enough of an honor. So Surajit Day. Jasmine Diaz, our bonding committee. Tyler Fung. Kelly Glenn. Thomas McCarthy, better known as Ryan. Sierra Pepin. Melanie Raphael. Anthony Tucker Bartley. And Lucia Vicenti. All remarkable students and community activists and just plain really good people. Thank you all. So now we're going to recognize Adrian Datta and Nada Medwali for their Project Pericles award-winning policy letter. So give me a minute on this one. So you can go, come on. So Project Pericles is a consortium that Wagner's been part of since 2005, I think. And it's a group of about 29, 30 schools, very committed to civic engagement. And one of the things they do every year is they sponsor a contest to have students write policy letters about any number of subjects. And all these different colleges, you know, places like Carleton and Pitzer and Bates and Wagner, students from those colleges all submit policy letters that they've written to some sort of decision maker, some sort of legislator. Wagner has never won the policy letter competition until this year. Adrian and Nada are first-year students who wrote their letter in Anne-Marie Dowling Castronovo's LC and Nick Richardson's LC. They wrote it about hydraulic fracturing or fracking. And they wrote it to Diane Savino, who still hasn't written back, I don't think. But nevertheless, we think it's having an impact. And because they've won this award, they're going to get some money to continue to advocate for this issue next year. They're already putting a plan in place. I don't think Nick is here, but I really do want to thank Anne-Marie. This LC required the students to do this policy letter, and this terrific letter just rose to the top. So again, we're really, really pleased with their accomplishment.
Dr. Peskel for helping us and supporting us with this project, and for Professor Dowling and Dr. Richardson. Like, we really appreciate all your help and for inspiring us this first year at college. Thank you very much.
So I want to issue a really strong apology because as an oversight, I left out one of our most enthusiastic, energetic, vociferous, terrific Bonners, Brandon Hart, and I know he's here. So Brandon. My apologies, Brandon. So now it's my pleasure to recognize Patricia Ann McCaffrey, Patty Ann McCaffrey, I'm not sure what she's calling herself these days, but what I want to do is recognize her for the Monte Rosso Scholarship Award. The person who wins this award is someone who's demonstrated accomplishment and promise in pursuit of a career in public service, and Patty Ann has just done it all. She's a junior, she'll be a senior next year, and Patty Ann, you want to come up here? And, Patty Ann Patty Ann started in her LC working with Generation Citizen and having an amazing experience. She then worked with El Centro for a couple of semesters. She helped to get the Breakfast Club started at PS20, which is Wagner students working with very young children very early in the morning. This is Patty going every day at about 7 o'clock to PS20, 7 a.m. this is. But I have to just single out one experience that I had with Patty Ann, and that's through the Bonner program. She really did help us to get the Bonner program going, and a number of us who are in this room, including Daniel Kennedy, who is right back there, we're at this, one of our wonderful community partners. Daniel is now working for Project Hospitality. Anyway, we were with Patty, and we were trying to come up with some new curricular ideas and some new ways of advancing civic engagement, and we were with these really high-powered people, very imaginative and creative and with wonderful ideas. But the person who kept coming up with the best ideas, the one who kept participating again and again and again, and would help us solve really tricky issues that we were running into, was Patty Ann McCaffrey. So I don't know if I told you, but I was in awe of you. I'm still in awe. So now we're going to have the senior cord distributions for our graduating seniors who have contributed significant time and effort to civic engagement projects and activities. This includes impact scholars and civic engagement students and anyone who thinks they've given a significant amount of time to community service is being recognized with these cords. So
you can just come, if our seniors can just stand and come up to receive your cords, please.
I think I have it.
So I also get to do something a little bit special. So this is our second year with 5 Port Richmond scholars. Many of you know about our very close partnership with the Port Richmond community. It was part of, I think, this imagination as a social process thing that some of our best students, Molly Delbridge, Kelly Griffith, Morgan Grubbs, Jared Leff, and Carrie Alexander, came to us and wanted to focus intensely on different areas in the Port Richmond community. They helped us reimagine and design the role of a student in community engagement and experiential learning work, and we are very proud that they helped start this program that will go on next year and actually grow and expand. And so we have sashes for you guys that will soon be embroidered. Anyway, thank you for all of your work, and congratulations for 2 years of amazing commitment. Congratulations, seniors.
And we're reaching the end of our program. It's my great pleasure to introduce one more time Kelly Griffith, who's going to give us the final remarks.
Okay, so I promise I'll be quick because I know there's a cocktail reception right after me, so I understand. First, I want to say something that doesn't get said very often, and that is thank you to the center that they do so much, from Kevin and Leo to Alyssa and Stacy, who are always in that office working their butts off, to Tim, who just joined our team this year and has made such a difference and really opened our eyes as scholars to a different side of being a Port Richmond Scholar. To Sam Siegel, who, oh my gosh, don't even get me started because I'll cry. But in just a couple weeks we get to be friends, which is really awesome because we've been basically, I don't know if you could even classify her as my mentor, my supervisor, my sister, everything. And to Dr. Preskill, who's retiring, which after so many wonderful years of doing wonderful things, am I allowed to say that? I said it.
Hands on the bag now.
Kelly, you keep saying it so you shame him to give up that idea. So, keep going.
Maybe he's not retired, but I don't, anyway. He's a wonderful guy, and I met Dr. Preskill when I came here in February of my senior year as a really nervous, anxious senior in high school, and now I'm a really nervous, anxious senior in college, so a lot has changed. But Dr. Preskill is one of the reasons why I came here. So thanks, Dr. Preskill. Thank you to everyone. Well, secrets.
No, it's not a secret. It's not a secret.
Oh, okay.
No. Okay.
Also, thank you to everyone else that is here today. Dr. Garassy and Dr. Ellison, who gave a wonderful speech. I don't know where she went, but it was really enlightening. Okay, so now I'll get started. So I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it a million more times before I graduate in 3 weeks and 1 day. But I am so lucky. I am so lucky because I've always known, I'm going to cry, this is bad. Because I've always known what I want to do. I want to teach. And although my dream of being a teacher has taken different shapes in the past couple of years, since I was 5 years old, I've always known what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I've only gotten more passionate about it. And so, after college, I'm going to Ecuador to be a Fulbright English teaching assistant, where I'll be teaching in a university. And I feel so lucky. Okay. But also I share something with a lot of people in this room, because in 3 weeks and 1 day, I'm graduating from Wagner College. And I'm so lucky to have had experiences that I've had here, and for Wagner, and for my Wagner plan, which I'm so thankful for. I'm lucky because my Wagner plan has taken me to Port Richmond, Ecuador, Spain, and Costa Rica. I'm lucky because I'm about to complete a journey that my grandmother's never had as an option. I'm lucky because my Wagner plan has led me to the best friends I could have ever imagined. I've worked with professors like Dr. Sanchez and faculty members that have cared about me, my dreams, and my well-being. I'm lucky because I've fallen in love with a community that has taught me so much, even though I always went as the teacher. I've learned more than I could have ever taught. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned at Wagner. How to learn from and reflect on my experiences. Because I learned that lesson, I will continue to be civically engaged after graduation, just like so many of you. I've become acutely aware of how my experiences have shaped who I am as a student, a teacher, and a person. I am deeply aware of the fact that I will learn so much as an English teaching assistant. I know that when I arrive in Ecuador, I won't be Fulbright Scholar Kelly Griffith. I'll be the gringa that teaches English at the university and stands out like a bunny on the oval. I'm well aware of the fact that I'm not going to change the world, contrary to popular belief. And I definitely won't save an Ecuadorian community or be named Best English Teacher of the Year, probably just the opposite. I'm most aware that I will change more than I will change anyone else. My Spanish will improve, I'll become a lot more fearless than I am today, and I'll come home with countless experiences that at this moment I know I cannot even imagine. And I am so lucky. And so, to the underclassmen in this room, embrace the scary fact that you are also so lucky because you are going to have countless experiences that at this moment you can't even imagine. To the faculty and staff in this room that I've been so lucky to have worked with and had your support for 4 years, thank you for pushing in me and believing in me. To my parents, who made the long voyage from Eastern Long Island to be here today, I cannot form the words right now to neither thank you nor express how lucky I feel to have both of you in my life. And to my fellow seniors, I don't know how it happened so quickly, but we did it. And we are going to keep doing it because we are lucky enough to have had a Wagner plan at all.
And as we saw today, our Wagner plan doesn't end in 3 weeks and 1 day. They will always be part of our lives. And how lucky does that make us? So thank you.
To celebrate everybody in here and all that we have done together in the Union Atrium. Have a good afternoon.